Ladies, gentlemen, and others, my name is Dan, the voice behind that Kaito Dan, and welcome to my review for RWBY Volume 8 Episode 9, Witch. But before we get started, as always, please make sure you watch the episode first on roosterteeth.com to support the show and avoid spoilers. Sorry for this one being a super late drop, and gotta love those tech issues, especially when they won't let you save your work. Regardless, before we begin, just in case you haven't heard yet, Kerry recently informed us on Twitter that episode 10 will be pushed back a week to February the 27th due to the current snowstorm conditions in Texas and the effect it's having on Rooster Teeth as a whole, which is totally understandable. Just reading about how bad it is right now, snow, the lack of water and electricity, it's just super tragic. Especially with these amazing people already dealing with the virus restraints working from home, so I got no problem with them lessening the stress by delaying the next episode. The health and safety of the amazing talented people behind the RWBY is vastly more important than getting a new chapter out. And as such, to anyone giving the RWBY hell for this delay, I got some advice for you. Grow a heart or get lost. You waited several weeks during the winter holidays for the next episodes, so wait one more week. Right, anyway, let's move on to the fandom spotlight and some of your thoughts from last week's grand return for Volume 8, starting with Novice, who made a neat note of how Salem's Silver Eyes usage for the Hound could be a sneaky side screw you to the God of Light, the originator of the power. While Noah Wolf Dude countered my surprised feelings on Penny being able to still fight the hack by highlighting that Penny's soul makes her a lot harder to corrupt than your average bit of Atlas tech. And finally, Oathkeeper Roxas was kind enough to remind us of one worrying statement that's been commonly shared by the RWBY. We're not out of the woods yet, folks. Even so, what a welcome and wild return it was for the volume last time out. Even looking beyond the major stuff going on with the Hound, we still had a landmark chapter for the Schnee family and some tender bonding gems in amongst some classic RWBY horrors. And with the potential for even more thrills and chills remaining high, was the other side of the story able to keep up the pace with events at the manor? Or did I feel this whale of an episode went belly up? Let's find out. We begin with a pretty cool long shot as we zoom through the Battle of Atlas, complete with trenches, dead bodies aplenty, explosions, and tons and tons and tons of grim. Nice little quick way to touch on the current state of the war zone before focusing on our primary setting for the episode, Monstra. What's surprising though is that we then see Jean, Ren, and Yang already make it inside the whale. I never figured we'd at least see how they got in, though it's not exactly a big loss of a scene, especially since we can roughly assume that they snuck in via some quick cloaking from Ren and going through the mouth. Or at least I hope the mouth and not the hole upstairs. Or god damn it, the one in the back. With a lot of the whale to scope through to find Oscar, thankfully the trio have Ren's semblance to count on for more than just stealth, as the ninja lad is starting to grasp more and more about his evolving power, noting that he can sense strong emotions which could lead them to Oscar. I would have loved something like that to help me through some of those Monstro levels in the Kingdom Hearts series, that's for sure. But regardless, this extension of his expanded ability to sense strong repressed emotions in people was first teased when Ren sensed the arrival of Clover and Ironwood in the training room last volume, and it's pretty cool to see Ren already trying to fully understand his improved semblance and how useful it can be for a mission, not just some scathing therapy. It fits in well with his rekindled drive to better understand strong emotions, including his own, by actively seeking out those emotions rather than ignore them, though not to the point that he can tell who he's sensing exactly, providing a decent downside to balance out the power's effectiveness. I also really like that it didn't take him long to think how useful it can be as an enhancement of his already strong sensory skills that we've also seen before when he caught on to Tyrion's charge back in Volume 4. The guy is skilled with aura-supported battlefield awareness, and he's already one of the sharpest minds amongst the youngsters when it comes to semblances, so it's logical for him to already be on the ball so swiftly. Plus, the reaction from Yang and Jean over his breakdown is pretty charming, not gonna lie. What's concerning though is Ren may be trying a little too hard to perhaps make up for his cautious and defeated mentality as of late, as Jean has to rein him back before he overuses his semblance, draining his aura faster when Jean can lighten the load with his aura amp. I'm glad that Ren's turned a corner and is now feeling more driven in the fight against Salem, but I'm just worried that after hitting rock bottom in confidence and will to face danger head on since learning of Salem's invincibility, he might be trying to compensate for his past attitude, and that could put him in even more danger if he's too reckless. Though maybe that's something already tempered by Jean reminding him that he's not doing this alone, so maybe I'm worrying over nothing. I hope. Also, God, I love goofball Jean. I've said it in the past that I relate big time to this blonde buffoon, especially in moments like these, and in positives and flaws, so I would totally act the same way in unashamedly making myself look silly just to lighten the mood a bit. Much like Ren, Jean has been through, the good and the bad, and it's just comforting to see characters go from wounded and broken to rekindled in heart and mind. Going from the seekers to the target, we then check in on Oscar, still looking worse for wear in his prison, though it sounds like he's been inspired by his bumps and bruises as he talks with Ozpin about a fairy tale called The Girl Who Fell Through the World, a story which Oscar seemed to attach to quite strongly in the past. At first I wondered if this tale was based on the anime movie The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, given the similar title, but based on details that Oscar and Ozpin discuss, it's more than likely inspired by Alice in Wonderland, as both featured girls literally falling into a vastly different world to their own. Also, as a side note, I cannot but wonder if that fairy tale may repeat its themes in this show with some of the heroes, since, Team RWBY did fall through the world in the opening. Always awesome to hear more about fairy tales from the world of Remnant, especially after loving the E.C. Myers book that was packed full of them, which, by the way, is going to be the newest RWBY animation spin-off later on this year, so be on the lookout for that. Back on topic, Oscar is bringing this tale up as he is reflecting on how symbolic it's been on his life. He too dreamt of being in a world or an adventure far grander than anything the life of a farm boy could give him, something Ozpin touched on way back when they first bonded. But after a long time of not knowing why the girl was sad upon her return back home, now Oscar knows all too well the reasons why. The girl, and he himself, are not the people they were before they fell. Oscar has gone through some really tough experiences, and though it's helped mold him into a stronger, braver young man, it's also pushed him ever closer to ultimately losing who he is to the soul bonding. And no matter what good this new world has given him, it's a fate that he still can't help but fear. I can't help but continue to feel sorry for this poor lad, hearing him talk about such pure aspirations that once fueled his dreams is now another reminder of how cruel his fate has become. It's another great use of world-building material that's also furthering the development and insight of a character, and Aaron Dismuke once again excelled at striking the perfect emotional chord to make Oscar's plight all the more tragic, especially when, as Ozpin suggests that it might be time to use magic and focus on an escape, Oscar rejects the idea as he feels the merging getting closer with each use of magic. Thankfully, Ozpin doesn't press the topic any further after that, even sharing his pride in what Oscar has done through his own actions, which helps maintain his role as a believable supporting partner to Oscar since his return. But man, just looking at the poor kid curled up in a ball, all wounded and beaten, just makes me want to hug him or hope someone else comes in and does it for me. Oh wait, no, I changed my mind! Well, while Hazel spirits Oscar away elsewhere, we're back in the trenches as Winter orders her troops to defend the bomb's landing zone. And hey, Team Funky are here too! I guess Ironwood's at the point where any available fighters on hand must be on the front lines, even his students. Boy, ain't that ironic coming from the man who once challenged Ozpin over if his students could win a war. Shame there's no Ciel Soleil though, the only other familiar Elysian military face that we've met before, that's not really been seen since her debut. I mean, she was on Penny's tournament team, so surely she can fight, and if there was ever a time for her to make even just the briefest of cameos, this would have been the best time. But hey, que sera sera. It's still cool to see Team Funky again, even if it is a weird sight to see Flint and Neon in soldier fatigues and not their usual stylish garbs. Pretty much just sums up the dire and depressing situation right there, let alone after hearing the two lack their usual swagger and positive moods. And this harrowing inclusion of kids drafted in to fight a war doesn't sit right at all with Marrow. Now yes, granted, huntsmen are expected to risk their lives fighting Grim, and compared to others in their school year, these two have at least fought tough battles on this scale before when aiding in Beacon. But they're also still students that wasn't prepared to fight a war, let alone one to this scale, so it's a rough deal no matter which way you look at it. At least from Marrow's point of view, he just can't help but feel it's another sign that this battle is risking far too much for his heart to accept easily. But until the fighting is over, he's just gonna have to stomach it, at least until something crosses that line, which I feel may be coming soon. After that little detour, we then see Hazel has dragged Oscar with him to where the lamp is being stored. Seems Oscar's advice to use the lamp to prove that he's right about Salem's true goals has left the big guy debating what to do. If the information that Oscar told him was a lie and Hazel passed it on to Salem, well, he'd be punished before Oscar would. However, while he is considering using the lamp to prove if Oscar's warning was right or wrong, he's not willing to risk a trap, not knowing what happens when you call out Jin, so he wants Oscar to do it for him. Makes a lot of sense actually, and I'm glad that Hazel wasn't written as suddenly 100% trusting of Oscar's word. He's cautious of all possible ramifications, as well as the fact that it's coming from someone tied to one of his biggest enemies. If Hazel instead jumped in headfirst without showing any kind of hesitancy or suspicion, I would feel it would come off as rushed and massively discrediting to the relationship that he has with Ozpin. Adding to the curious eyes as well is the arrival of Emerald, of course having listened in to the pair's discussion recently, sparking her own doubts, arriving just in time for Oscar to call forth Jin, who after a cute little welcome with Oscar, still looks about as stunning as ever. Hey, don't act like her design doesn't make you speechless each time she pops out, she certainly left these two in awe, that's for sure. Though maybe for different reasons than we have. In fact, just the Azure Spirit popping out at all is confirmation enough for Hazel that Oscar is right, which means that he's starting to understand he is on the wrong side, and it's time to do what's right, just like his sister would, starting with getting Oscar and Emerald out of here safely. I'm surprised that it took him to have no questions asked for this to actually go on, but you know what? At the same time, he was only on Salem's side after being emotionally broken and manipulated into submission. There's really no loyalty that he has towards Salem. So now that he knows that Oscar was being sincere with him, it's more than enough fair reasons for him to start thinking about making a face turn once there was actually concrete evidence enough to give him a push. Also, I adore that Hazel wants Emerald out as well. Over time, we've seen moments where the big guy has been gaining himself a sort of guardian role to Emerald and Mercury, fighting alongside them, watching their backs, even trying to take sole blame for the defeat at Haven, getting to the point where I was starting to wonder if it was just because he's a good man underneath all the pain and anger, or if it's cause he maybe sees much of himself and Gretchen in the pair, and he wants to make up for failing to protect his sister by making sure that these two no longer suffer. It's an aspect that's made me really admire the trio's dynamic a lot, and it has been key into slowly forming some hopes within me of seeing the trio break away, and maybe even redeem themselves in some fashion. So getting to see that prospect starting to take shape here puts a really big smile on my face. A small problem though, Oscar still needs his cane, and he also can't leave with the lamp, as Salem will be alerted the moment that it's moved. So for now, the priority is Oscar and Emerald out first, then Hazel comes back for the lamp. Poor Jin though, back-to-back summons for no questions now, and I get the feeling that if she wasn't called forth by Oscar, she'd be a little bit more upset, especially after telling RWBY that she wouldn't allow it to happen again. I think her history with the old man, and the fact that she is rather playful, can excuse her being cool at least for now. But I would like to see some potential downsides to doing this constantly, so we avoid her summons being overutilized. The next time we see her at this point, I think should be when we finally get that last question asked. But just as the group leave and Jin starts to fade back into a vessel, the genie's eyes dart to the side, because it turns out the walls have ears. Or in this case, eyes, one pink and one brown. Turns out Neo was also watching on, and doing so via her first time of showing her illusions can flat out make her camouflage with her surroundings. I wonder if Ilya can sue for copyright infringement. Also, that's the Grim Whale's goopy skin that she's just cloaked as, and now I'm thinking of Grim Whale flavoured ice cream. There might actually be a Ben & Jerry's flavour for all we know. But yeah, she's also aware now of how to summon Jin, and that those who have just left plan on booking it with the lamp, with the scene ending here, just leaving us with a few questions to ask of our own. Number 1. Does Neo have her own question to ask, and if so, what is it? Could it be that she wants to ask if Torchwick is still alive? Number 2. How is Neo going to be able to talk to Jin? It looks like Jin's vanishing, so Neo would have to call her name again, but the mute will either have to use someone else to do so, or maybe use text-to-speech on a scroll, or hope that Jin has played charades and knows sign language. As for the third question, well, we'll save that for later. Moving on, and our heroes are still looking for Oscar while having to share their aura so Ren can mask them and sense emotions, and it's starting to take their toll on both boys, prompting a small recharge for Ren while Jean goes off to run ahead and scout nearby, leaving Yang some time to note how good it is to see the Juniper lads on good terms again, after things got a little bit patchy down in the tundra. Ren though sees through Yang's quip, and comments how she's trying to lighten the mood despite feeling scared, which she admits with a smile. Honestly, it's just good to see all of them being friends again, and it's pleasing to see these two especially not be at each other's throats, but rather sharing in their feelings of fear. No longer are those feelings driving a wedge between them. Instead, it's actually uniting them for the same goal. And yet, once again, the episode is giving me cause for concern when Ren mentions that he senses no fear within Jean. Instead, he's got total confidence that they will succeed, and that's almost worse in my opinion. There's a quote that once you become fearless, life becomes limitless, but in this instance, I worry about what Jean without fear could do. I mean, yeah, he looks to have overcome his reckless "I'm okay with dying if the ones that matter survive" mentality that he had during the Mistral arc, but what if he's put into a position where he has no fear of death because he's certain that it will lead to victory in the end? In the moment as well, this thought process was especially worrying considering that this was the first episode released on the day before Valentine's Day since Volume 3's finale, and we all know what went down there involving the Blonde Knight. I just can't help but feel that as pleasing as it is to see Jean still keeping hope strong, we're starting to raise some death flags. Then again, depending on how things go with RWBY, we might need another bright soul of hope to carry the torch in her stead. More reasons to panic arrive when Jean comes charging back with a seer on his tail, and though the group managed to hide away for the moment, Ren's worn out aura breaks just before they were in the clear, and the seer spots the intruders. As this is going on, we see Emerald and an oddly softer sounding Hazel, who's concerned if he, implying Oscar, will be okay on his own. But their conversation is cut off with the arrival of Salem, who asks Hazel if he has their information yet from Oscar. And Hazel, in rare form, is quite nervous. But this curious sight doesn't hold Salem's interest for long, as she's soon alerted to the alarm, and she quickly figures out that the intruders seek the lamp, whooshing off like that bit in Hotel Transylvania with Dracula. Now their cover is blown, the heroes fight through some grim and ready themselves to charge through even more danger, after a little charming bit of keep moving forward. And in the midst of the chaos outside, we see the bomb is now ready to be transported, meaning the window for the heroes to get out with Oscar before being blown sky high is growing ever shorter. A concerned Marrow praying that one gets the job done. And okay, that got a laugh out of me in spite of the high tension. Sticking outside for the moment, Marrow's worries for the kids has him questioning Winter straight up if she would approve letting the bomb be delivered if Weiss was inside, and if she's willing to tell her sister that her friends died if the worst were to happen. And you can tell just by her expression that the situation is tearing apart Winter from inside. Of course she doesn't want the kids to be in danger, and of course she wants to give them more time if she could. But her tug of war between her heart and duty is still raging on, and her dedication to her orders remains in the lead, as much as it pains her to follow them, and it's not exactly easy as saying I'll give them extra 5 minutes, when there's other people dying right now the longer the whale keeps spewing out grim. So really, there's not much choice that Winter has, and her back is against the wall with zero choice but to press on, and deal with her feelings for now. Which, well, that's just depressing. I do have to wonder what will be the tipping point for Winter. My guess is either the bomb failing to kill the whale and Ironwood's desperation crosses a moral line that even she can't ignore, or Weiss may indeed be caught in the crossfire, and Big Sis Winter won't let her little sister die for a seemingly fruitless effort. Whatever it is, it's engrossing as all hell stuff, and the fact that I can't predict what will happen only makes it that much more thrilling, so I can't wait to see what unfolds in this particular arc. Once more we go into the whale, just as the heroes cross paths with Emerald and Hazel, but before the two sides clash, Hazel turns out to be Oscar, Emerald having used her semblance to disguise him through hallucinations. And what a feat for the thief, considering in the past she needed to have eye contact with her target to create those hallucinations. But now she was able to have it up without any target in sight and with no physical stress as well. Guess she wasn't kidding when she told Cinder that she's been improving her power. Also, I love this little fake out twist. Yeah, looking back, you probably could tell something was off with Hazel in how he spoke and interacted with Salem, but it wasn't completely obvious, and I do love misdirections like this that do leave you breadcrumbs of clues for you to catch on beforehand or know the differences in later rewatches. Plus, we finally got Oscar his much deserved hug, and it's sweet that it comes from Jean, the guy who previously accused him of being untrustworthy while he pinned him to a wall. The two have slowly grown a bit of a sibling bond since then, and on a deeper level, this is a big relief as well for Jean, considering, again, what happened the last time that we had a Valentine's Eve episode. The knight has finally been able to rescue someone from certain death, though of course not with some unexpected help, and understandably there is some tension in seeing Emerald again even if she's helping out Oscar. At least until Ren, without his semblance I should point out since his aura broke, can tell that Emerald's acting on the same scared feelings that they all feel. So for now, they have a common enemy, and a common desire to get the hell out of here with Emerald's aid. And it looks like they are about to make it home free. But just as they near the openings on the side of the whale, boom! Here comes the Wicked Witch who's wicked pissed. And in our first proper meeting between the big bad and some of our heroes, Salem swiftly shows why she is a force to be reckoned with, as she snatches up Emerald lightning fast, and if not for Jean's quick shielding, Ren would have been dead as a doornail, since he's got no aura to count on to protect him from that magical blast, and even then it leaves the two lads grounded. That just leaves Yang to take charge, and boy does she, and she leaps in, barrels some well-timed chest punches, and then scoots out quick so she can let loose her charge bombs, blowing Salem's chest to goop. Gnarly as all hell, especially since, we're seeing Salem's spine break in the process, earning Yang her first kill. Well, not really, cause even with the world's worst boob surgery, this ain't stopping Salem. Nor can Oscar's first use of combative magic. His own magic blast just doing enough to win Salem, but she still flings Yang at him, and that is enough to keep all of them down. Still worth praising Oscar for putting aside his fears regarding using magic to think of other people's lives before his own. With Salem's foes now pinned down, she then starts to question Emerald about what has happened to the lamp. Looks like Neo spirited the relic away, which, to be fair, is a smart move. No sense messing around with it within reach of Salem if you're as talented as Neo in ways of escaping undetected. Though again, I'm interested in learning her intentions. One other question could be, is she gonna bring it to Cinder to prove to her that Salem's full of BS, prompting her to finally go full rogue? But, after going through all the effort of stealing the lamp for Cinder, and then she took all the credit, I don't think she's gonna want to help out Cinder right now, especially if it puts her back into the war zone. Either way, Salem is now down a lamp, and she's taking her frustrations out on everyone. First Emerald, and then the Oscar pair, verbally cutting down her old flame's decision to go from almighty pseudo-god alongside her to fighting for the weak world in a frail youth's body. Nice to see that she's not lost that ironic god complex that she grew over the old days, and this shot of her switching from calm and expressionless to fierce and frustrated, clutching Oscar's head, is also super cool. Salem now venting her annoyance that Ozpin keeps coming back to interfere in her life so often. But before I could point out how ironic that is, Yang does it for me, calling out how Salem keeps coming back to inflict more harm on the world, warranting Ozpin to do something to counter her schemes. She also is starting to gnaw away at the very source of Salem's motivations, that something bad happened to her long ago, and yet here she is constantly inflicting more pain and death on the world that has done nothing really remotely involved in those same motivations, tied to her plight. It's certainly some accurate bobs, fittingly wonderfully delivered by Barbara herself, and she's completely right. No one in this world is promised a happy ending, so why is it right to punish the world for years on end just because something bad happened to you once upon a time? Let alone something that Salem herself pretty much made worse by her own actions, such as the human uprising and taking on a false god role. Yang also calls out how Salem's selfish desire to punish the world for something it has no say in has led to so many lost lives, including some dear to her, like Summer Rose, her mom. First off, love that we hear Yang once again refer to Summer as her mum, not Raven. Yeah, Raven is her biological mum, but obviously Summer was the one who truly raised her like a mother should, as she mentioned way back in Volume 2. And after hearing how Salem was responsible for her supposed death last volume, I'm glad to see that that bombshell wounded Yang just as much as it did RWBY. Also, on the topic of Raven, good to see that Yang did put action to her words when she told Raven back at Haven that in spite of her fears, she will be there to challenge Salem face to face, unlike Raven who let her fear drive her away. If we do get Raven back somewhere down the line, I would love to see Yang bring this up that she was able to back up her words, perhaps as a way to influence Raven into being equally as brave as she was in spite of her justified fear. But here's the real talking point of this moment, Summer's reaction, as she almost playfully smiles at hearing about Summer again. She now knows that Summer's death affected not just RWBY but Yang, two of her most defiant enemies, which can't be good news at all, considering Salem's a master of the mental warfare. And of course, we just learned that the Hound was a fusion of Silver-Eyed Warriors and Grimm. At this point, Salem using Summer as the next fusion host body is pretty much a given, and I'm both excited and sick at the thought of seeing that unfold because of the reaction it will garner out of both RWBY and Yang. A sickeningly twisted way for Salem to further break the spirits of our heroes, and an even harder beast to kill since, that's two daughters going up against the corpse of their mum. Finally, Hazel arrives on the scene, but he calls to His Grace, who orders him to take Oscar back to his cell while she continues her questioning. But just as it looks like the big guy may have fallen back in line, he whispers to Oscar, "No more Gretchen's boy," before giving Oscar his cane back and turning around to deliver a booming uppercut right into Salem's face, sending her flying. Hell frickin' yes. I love this scene so much, not only for the sight of seeing Salem get Superman punched by someone she believed was still loyal to her, not only because of that very impactful as hell line that doesn't forgive Ozpin for his role in Gretchen's death, but at least is a demand to the bonded pair to make sure no more needless deaths take place by their lead, but also because the music in this moment is top drawer musical accompaniment at its finest. What starts as short drum beats as it feels like all hope is lost for our hero's efforts slowly builds up volume and tempo, creating a false belief that Hazel's about to cause more harm, only for the drums to cease to let his whispered words settle in our minds. And after that, we get Hazel's heel to face turn cemented by a short but striking distorted sound, almost like the music itself is twisting as much as Hazel is twisting towards trying to redeem himself. And it also allows for the drums to return to add more oomph to Hazel's punch, but this time with a bit of a heroic flavour to the accompanying instrumentation. The lighter but still weighty tone further symbolizing that Hazel is ready to fight, not for the evil queen, but for the greater good, much like his sister would want him to do. It's a short piece of the score, but it's also a wonderfully poignant capsule of the fake out and Hazel's change that just struck a chord with me, and further elevated this scene to something truly epic. So much so, it might actually be one of my favourite score pieces in the entire series, so I tip my hat to Alex Abraham for that quality piece. And here we go then. Hazel has finally decided to right some of the wrongs that he's done by standing up to Salem just like he did before being manipulated, and though his punch did knock out the evil queen, it at least did enough to rock her and now turn her focus onto him, her tendrils trapping the heroes disappearing as I guess she's putting her sole focus on taking out the brute with her full might. And knowing full well this could be his last stand, Hazel's not holding back either, as he injects not just one dust crystal into his body, but 5 different types: fire, wind, earth, lightning, and hard light dust, all of which makes him an absolute juggernaut of dust power. But one look at the scars and the state of his eyes after injecting the crystals makes it clear that this is taking its toll on the big guy, even if he can't feel the pain. As he tells everyone else to get out of Dodge, a brief look is shared between him and Emerald. No words of thanks or prayers to make it back in one piece is shared, but nothing really needs to be said. The expressions say enough. Again, another great moment from this relationship, before we finally get to see for ourselves a brawl between the unstoppable force and the immovable object, RWBY's version of The Fiend versus Brock Lesnar, Immortal versus Unshakable, and it's a ton of fun indeed. Fast paced as heck, it's a fight that works wonderfully with each fighter's strengths. Salem's ability to take all manner of blows without end, as well as her magic and grim might, Then there's Hazel's raw physical strength and prowess with dust power, at one point launching himself into the air before dropping a giant ball of fire, earth and lightning onto Salem, following it up with some vicious punches, turning Salem into a smear on the floor. It's easily one of the most aggressive fights in the series just because of the sheer brutality at play, and it makes for epic watching, even if it's rather on the short side. Naturally, Salem is able to take even her skull being turned into Marmite spread all fine, and soon she takes control of the fight herself. And the fact that she's still the strongest of the two, in spite of Hazel being an absolute dust-powered beast, really does hit home that it's going to take a lot more to take Salem down than physical power. As this is going on, the kids make a break for it, Emerald included, and I'm curious to see if the thief will stick around and become a new ally, or if she will try to find Cinder and try to convince her to leave as well, which could lead to either her actually following alongside Emerald, or there's some fracturing between the two, and that could finally push Emerald into finally seeing where she stands in Cinder's importance to where she moves on from her. We'll have to wait and see. But I wouldn't be against her joining the heroes, even if it's more of a I'm only with you guys because I want to help stop Salem, not because we're friends deal, which by itself would still make for some very interesting interactions with some very tense past wounds to heal. However, Oscar is yet to flee, and it looks like he's gonna stay behind to further hold off Salem, which is very worrying considering, well, these lot just risk their lives to get Oscar away from the rail before it goes boom, and that bomb is getting mighty close. Though I do get why he does want to make sure that Salem doesn't want to come after them, especially since Salem soon turns her attention towards him just as he's readying some kind of magic from within the Kane's gears, the same glow that appeared when he first recalled the magic to help save himself from falling off of the vault. But just as Salem lunges towards him, Hazel bear hugs Salem from behind before biting down on a fire dust crystal, setting the pair of them on fire. Holy hell, that's badass! And one hell of a way to try and burn the witch, literally, even if she's choking you out with grim tendrils. And it seems like Hazel's willing to become the Goku to Oscar's Piccolo by sacrificing himself to make sure that Oscar's next attack lands its mark, as we then see the long memory is now emitting flickers of magic before the green spear appears once again around the young lad and he unleashes a magical burst directly at the ignited pair. A white flash surrounds the scene, and capping off the episode in one of the most painful cliffhangers in recent memory. You'll see in my reaction that I did get a little bit of a lighthearted peeved reaction by this cause, well, what the heck just happened? It could very well be that this is just a supercharged magic blast that Oscar hopes will keep Salem down long enough for him and the others to get away without her coming after them, but there's also the fact that the long memory has been quoted before in the Volume 3 commentaries as being able to store time. I got a small theory brewing in my head that what we think is a magical attack could be something else using that stored time. Either Oscar is using it to momentarily freeze Salem in a poor state, at least long enough for him to get away, and that is a bit of a long shot guess, but then there's also this one. That white flash is actually from Oscar using that stored time to force Salem into a timeless void, where there's gonna be a lot more than just a blast handing her away. See, one other detail to the Kane besides that stored time element is something that Ozpin said himself, that the Kane is precious to him. I get that the Kane is something passed down his many lives and that alone could give it significant value, but I also wonder if it's precious because its stored time could also be stored memories. Bottled up reflections of his past that he has carried on to perhaps one day use as mental attacks on Salem to make us see images personal to them both, or at least to Ozpin, that could influence Salem into finally realizing the value of life and death, rather than just craving death. I don't know, it's just a little line that's always stuck with me. And Ozpin surely by now knows that it's going to take more than a magical attack to stop Salem, even for a few seconds. So combining the stored time element, the precious to me line, the white flash, Salem needed to be understanding the importance of life and death, and the cane literally being named the Long Memory, just makes me feel like I can't help but form this short little theory of mine of Ozpin's long stored ace in the whole plan being some memories to make the difference, one way or the other. Regardless, what a final note to hang on. Oscar's still in danger while Salem is rampaging through the whale and her enemies, and the bomb is drawing near. Hazel could also very well be on the cusp of dying in self-sacrifice, and we have no clue if that blast is effective enough to keep Salem away momentarily, and let alone what the hell that blast was. A lot of open-ended plot threads that we don't even know if it's going to be followed up next episode, but damn if it doesn't make for a gripping ending sequence to another blockbuster chapter. Much like the final scene itself, this episode was full of game-changing moments that kept me guessing throughout, and all of the major shifts were delivered with aplomb. The star of the episode, unquestionably, is Hazel, who was key to many of the episode's highlights, as he showed great emotion, great cunning, great bravery, and just an overall stellar chapter where he finally starts to make up for his past mistakes, and a moment that's been a long time coming. His writing was some of the most grounded stuff as well, with worthwhile comments reflecting off his many engaging relationship dynamics. His content wasn't the only highlights in terms of writing and interactions, by the way. In fact, honestly, the episode was packed with 4 strong examples of this, equal to the high tension and action. The stuff with Marrow and Winter furthered their ongoing conflicts briefly, but still with captivating raw emotion. The main trio of Jean, Ren and Yang continued to work extremely well off each other, and the Oscar pair continued their engaging chemistry with some earnest understanding and support shared between them, making it all the more dramatic to see each of their strong bonds at play in the midst of some very high stakes and important shifts amongst many allegiances. The music was at its very best this volume for me, with the Hazel turn score obviously being my personal highlight. Just overall fantastic atmospheric and story supporting tunes that further ramped up the emotions to great effect, while the animation also continued its fine form, especially in the closing brawl. If I had any gripes with the episode, it would be minute issues like the main 3 possibly having it a bit too easy at the start with their trek through the whale. A few more dodging of Grim could have ramped up the threat level just a tad more than watching them walk through every single empty corridor possible and then being caught by the first Grim they come across. But again, that's not that big of a deal. Nor is the stuff like Salem releasing the heroes from their binds or still no sign of CL. Moving on now to the episode awards, and 2 of them you could probably guess who they go to. For starters, there's Hazel as the character of the episode, and I've already gone into great detail as to why. Meanwhile, the scene of the episode definitely goes to Hazel's turn. A perfect payoff to a steadily rising build backed by a short but powerful score piece and some brilliant delivery of his lines by William Orndorff. And speaking of the voice acting gold star actually had a lot of top contenders. Again, William Orndorff's performance really sold the magnitude of his dialogue at various points, and even the shifts in his performance when he's subtly teasing that it's Oscar being disguised as him was also fantastic stuff, though Jen and Mick could have also gotten this too in my opinion. But instead, I'll give it to Barbara, who not only perfectly delivered some pained yet bolden emotion when Yang confronted Salem, she also made some of the softer, more lighthearted moments really stick the landing, mostly with the funny lines earlier on in the episode, which all hit the mark stronger than ever because of how she delivered them. So while the cliffhanger was a nasty little kick to the shins, and I'm worried about so many characters right now, this all capped off another super strong chapter of a volume that just keeps giving us banger after banger. The villains have taken massive hits with the loss of 2 key members, their prisoner and their lamp, with several of those items and people being key to a lot of the episode's thoroughly gripping and curious lingering threads that even until just the next chapter will leave fans reeling with theories and strong emotions. It's wild to think that we've still got a decent handful of episodes still to go, because it feels like we've already hit massive set pieces worthy of being in the volume finale. But nope, we're still trucking along. And who knows what after effects the events of this chapter will have next time out. But at least for now, once again, I'm left stunned, speechless, and absolutely enthralled by a volume that's yet to fail in offering shining examples of what's continued to push this volume into the finest content seen in the series. But those are just my thoughts, time for you to tell me yours. Were you glad that Hazel finally saw the light? Do you have any idea what Oscar did? What do you think about Neo stealing the lamp? And what do you think will happen with that blast? Let me know in the comments down below, and while you're at it, hit the subscribe and bell buttons and tick the notification box to make sure you get every single video from me as they drop. And follow me on Twitter at @KaitoDan for more on anything to do with RWBY, updates on the channel, and more. But until next time, have a good day or a good night, and peace out.